All right, we now welcome on an individual from Oskaloosa, Iowa, a man who can flip things. And no, sir, we're not talking about the burgers on your grill or your next home renovation project. We're talking about your men's college basketball roster in today's new NIL era. He's done it twice. He's done it at Drake. He's done it at Iowa with success to follow each time. And don't let that soft, sweet smile fool you because this man is an assassin. Your Iowa men's assistant basketball coach, Coach Josh Sash.
Welcome to the show, Josh Sash.
That is quite the introduction there.
What an
I
intro.
appreciate it. Thanks for having me on,
We can
guys.
just cut the podcast there, and we can call that the clip.
Let's call it a day.
Coach, first off, thanks for hopping on and joining us today. But how's your summer been? What have you been up to?
Yeah, it's been good. It's gone fast. I think we're in week 6 here with our guys. So workout's been going good, and just personally recruiting, I guess. Two weekends in June, 2 weekends in July, and then personally, I got two of my younger boys are playing baseball. So I think my youngest one just ended here this afternoon in the state tournament in Des Moines. So I think we're completely done with baseball, which has dominated our summer.
Yeah, seems to dominate a lot of parents. I got 5 nephews myself, so it's unbelievable. Where you all been traveling for recruiting? I think you've been in Vegas, maybe Charlotte. Where else?
Yeah, there's an event down in Rock Hill early June, NBPA Top 100 camp, and then the high school events that happen in June that are sanctioned by individual states. So kids in those events are either playing with their high school teams or they're playing, multiple states get together and they kind of, put them together on teams and play, that way it's almost like an all-star type deal. So you can go watch those. And then the AAU circuit the last 2 weekends. So it's been a little bit of everywhere. I think, Vegas, Texas, Atlanta, Augusta, Rock Hill, South Carolina again, a little bit of everywhere. So it's kind of all over.
Yeah, that'll keep you busy. You got any plans outside of basketball? I know Coach McCollum was just on John Rothstein's show. He's going to Hawaii. Joe says, "You take the
Yeah,
fam anywhere?"
I wish I was going to Hawaii. We're going to go to Florida for a week, so we'll get away and do a little trip down there for the kids before school starts back up. So we'll get a little vacay.
There you go. That's deserving for the best dad ever cup there in the background, taking the fam to Florida. But Coach, go ahead and
Yeah.
let's briefly cap your background here. You're from Oskaloosa. Kind of tell us about where you went to college. Did you play any college sports? How you got into coaching, and then how you ultimately ended up with Coach McCollum.
Yeah, so coming out of high school in Oskaloosa, I was probably a better football player than I was a basketball player. I did play basketball, and I was a decent player, but had some Division II, Division III football recruitment. Considered going to Iowa and just being a student. And at the very last second, I went to Indian Hills Junior College. I got a computer programming degree, so I went into the workforce at 21, working for Wells Fargo as a computer programmer. I did it for about a year and a half, and I hated it. And I moved back to Oskaloosa and didn't really know what I was going to do, honestly. Worked some construction, worked at a shoe store, and me and my brother Tyler would go play pickup games over in the summer with some of the guys over at William Penn. And John Henry down there at William Penn, he was one of my high school coaches, and he said, you know what, why don't you go back to school? Why don't you, come be on my staff? I'll let you coach the junior varsity team and then assist me on the varsity. And so I got to be the head JV coach and assistant on the varsity, and just kind of really fell in love with coaching. So did that for a couple of years and started to, work camps, different places around the state of Iowa, around the country, and email people, hey, can I work camp, just so I could get out and meet people. And that was kind of what you did back then when you were trying to get your foot in the door in the business. And so, did that. And that was kind of my start of my journey.
So, if I'm correct, you ended up coaching at Indian Hills Community College, right? Went over.
Yeah. So later on,
Went over to
I came back.
Went over to DMACC, and then
Yep.
how did you end up with McCollum?
Yeah. So, I'd been at a couple different places, Division One. I was actually at Drake with Keno Davis in 2007, 2008. Okay. So we went to the NCAA tournament. We won the Valley tournament, went to the NCAA tournament. This was the Adam Emmenecker year.
And, you see Magic before there, then in the morning. Okay, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, we got beat on buzzer beater by Western Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
So I had been at Drake. I moved on with Keno. I was at Providence. I got into junior college, and so I guess I had a lot of experience in junior college. I went from being an assistant at Indian Hills in 2015 to 2017. Got my first Division I assistant job at UMKC. So I was there 2 years. My head coach got let go, so the staff got let go. Took the head job at DMACC for a year. Had some success, and then opened up the door for me to go to North Dakota State. So I had about 5 years of Division I assistant experience. I left North Dakota State. I went to Indian Hills to be the head coach. So 2 years of head coaching experience, and kind of crossed paths with Coach McCollum along the way. Recruiting events, had talked on the phone a couple times, and he kind of called me out of the blue after my year at Indian Hills and just said, hey, I'm looking for a guy that, has some experience in Division I. Specifically, I need somebody that's done scheduling in Division I, and so I had done scheduling. I think, the fact that I was from Iowa, I'd been at Drake before, I'd graduated, with my master's from there. I'd been a head coach. I think I probably just checked a lot of boxes for him to, be able to come onto his staff there at Drake. And so, it worked out, and it worked out pretty well.
Coach, first off, we had Coach McCollum on 2 years ago, right before the Bradley game, and you come off a lot less intimidating than that guy. That guy was looking like the Godfather. He had like the dark neon blue, kind of like looking at us like, am I going to take these guys out at some point? But no, you really climbed the ladder then. You've really done the grind. Respect that. And then obviously, McCollum, all the buzz goes around town after Drake's Cinderella run of that season, and he's going to Iowa City. He's going to his homeland. And when you tell us about how you got called with them and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so he had, once we got done playing, he'd had a couple conversations, with the staff, and then I had talked to him on the phone a couple times as he was in the process here of discussing this job with Iowa, and then ultimately accepting the job, and just what that looked like, and that he wanted us to come along, and wanted me to come along, and so it was a pretty easy decision to make for me, being a longtime Hawkeye, and born and raised a Hawkeye fan. Obviously my brother played here at Iowa, and so a ton of connections to the University of Iowa, and for him to offer me that opportunity to come with him, it was really surreal that it happened, and I'm really grateful and appreciative to be here.
We're glad to have you, because you guys had a considerable amount of success in your first year. And I know that Nate wants to get in that first year. And what's the step up look like from Indian Hills to DMACC to Drake to the big stage in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think everywhere I've been in my journey, I've been at some places where a lot of people don't really care, and I've been at some places where a lot of people care, and so I've always been kind of told, I think Coach Henry probably told me when I was at William Penn, make the big time where you're at. And so, wherever I was at, I just always have immersed myself in the job, and really focused on, doing the best job I could where I was at. And so I feel like in this profession, sometimes guys look for, they look for all the networking opportunities, and they're always, trying to climb the ladder. And I never really tried to do that. I always just tried to do the best job at the job that I had, and that just opened up opportunities. I was fortunate to get that head coaching job at DMACC. I think that really prepared me for a place like Indian Hills, and Indian Hills has had a long-term tradition of a lot of success in junior college. I think it's one of the best junior college jobs in the country, and so there's some pressure there where I didn't feel that at DMACC. So stepping into that, I think that summer, I had to hire 3 assistant coaches, and I signed, 15 guys, and then one guy toward the end of the summer decided to go Division I, and one guy decided to go prep school, and so went out and signed 2 more guys. So, signed 17 players and hired 2 assistant coaches. That was a whirlwind summer for me. We go through that whole season, and I kind of been out of junior college for a couple of years, so coming back to junior college, it was like there's some things in junior college that can kind of wear on you a little bit. It's a hard level at times. It's a rewarding level. It's an enjoyable level, but there's some difficulties there. So, it was, I enjoyed being a head coach, but having the opportunity to go step up into the Missouri Valley, me being a GA at Drake way back, I'd always kind of looked back on my time at Drake and, followed the Missouri Valley. I know what a good basketball league it is. And so, having the opportunity to step up into that was something that I was really excited about. Now, all the experiences I had, I felt like up to that point really prepared me for that. Going from Drake to Iowa, I think that was a step that all of us, on staff, that was a big step for us. Just, the business in the college basketball has changed here probably more in the past 5 years than in the past 30 years combined. Just with the NIL stuff, the transfer portal, I think the levels have changed now of what, it used to be, what a Valley player looked like and what a Summit League player looked like. I think they're all kind of different now. And so, we kind of hit the ground running here last, spring, summer, trying to figure out, okay, what does a Big Ten player look like? And what are the things that we're going to encounter this year that are going to be different that we haven't seen before? And, we think we learned along the way. There was some ups and some downs. And then obviously, it kind of culminated with a really good run at the end. And we're excited about where we're at and we're excited about the future.
It's a really cool perspective on just wherever your stage is, making it, it's big for you. Like, treat it with the respect and the day in, day out mentality that it deserves. And you could see that because obviously that was a big step up for not only the coaching staff, but most of the starting 5. And you could feel that on the court. And that's a testament to you guys for sure.
No doubt. I think it gave our guys and maybe even our staff and probably coach, just a little bit of an edge. I think sometimes people question, hey, 2 years ago, these guys were, D2 guys and JUCO guys and wherever, are they ready for this? And so I think that, keeps a chip on our shoulder and motivates and fuels us.
We got a tornado siren. Is that
what an Iowa podcast right now?
Was that yours or was that mine? I was just trying to figure out.
I'm in Cedar Falls. I had one about an hour ago, and there was a tornado just west of us by about half hour. So
okay,
that's making its way down to you. Yeah, this is great content.
Yeah, it's getting dark. I'm sitting in my office here. It's getting dark out.
Baby. Yeah, what better place to be than Carver, locking that
right
tornado. But Coach, so obviously we'll skip over the season, but I want to go straight to the last year's NCAA tournament run before we jump into this upcoming season. You take down Clemson, and then obviously the game kind of heard around the world, especially for this year's NCAA tournament, was taking down number 1 seeded Florida. Tell us about kind of going up into that game, how the mindset it was of the staff and the players, and then maybe how your life changed after that. Don't be too humble on this now, because that's the first Elite 8 experience because of that win in 39 years. So
it's
don't play
a pretty
it
good
off.
run. It's the first Elite 8 in 39 years.
Yeah, so don't play this off. I want to know how this kind of impacted your life after that Florida win.
Yeah, so I think we felt like we weren't probably playing our best basketball at the end of the season. Going into the Big Ten tournament, I don't think we played our best. I think we were a little disappointed with how we played in those situations, and we just kind of reset. I think that week, once we found out, we made it into the tournament, we were going to play Clemson. We saw what the bracket looked like. We just kind of reset, and we kind of got back to the basics of like who we are and what the program's about and the things that we value. And I think we took some really good steps that week. In the right direction to really prepare and play well. I thought against Clemson, which my perspective is this: we finished the Clemson game, all right, and we're walking off the floor, and here's this tunnel. Okay, you're in Tampa. Here's this tunnel. You have the Florida team standing there. They're getting ready to play Prairie View. and they know there's probably a good chance they're going to win and they're going to play us. And you can just see the look in their eye when they're looking at us. The fans are hanging down over top of us, yelling at us and gator chomping at us, so we walk off the floor. Obviously, you enjoy that win for a brief minute, but the thing about the NCAA tournament is you're just always trying to prepare. Once I think Bryceton had the scout on that game, and once you get done with that game, we had somebody scouting the Florida team and somebody scouting the Prairie View team, and so then it was like, okay, who are going to be our next opponents after that? And so it's just, you're constantly watching film, you're constantly preparing, you're constantly trying to give yourself an edge. So, we're happy when we won a game. Obviously, we won a game the year before at Drake, so we had accomplished something like that before, and we kind of knew what that looked like. Now you got number one Florida. And when you really get into the film of Florida and you start watching them, we thought, okay, number one, they score in transition. Their half-court offense is not very good. So if we can, play the game at our pace and we can keep them out of transition, we'll have a good chance. Secondly, they score off offensive rebounding. So we knew we had to dominate the glass. And so we just tried to really get a physical, tough mindset with our guys going into that game of, imposing our will and bullying the bullies. And so, I thought our guys, did a great job with the game plan. Obviously to be able to play as well as we did against them, we did out-rebound them like we wanted to. And then, to be able to finish that game, felt like we controlled a lot of that game. And then at the end, they kind of took a lead, and it was like, okay, a lot of teams in that situation, in that hostile environment, could crumble. And we came back and obviously, finished and won the game. But going into that game was crazy. We get on the bus from the hotel, and you got a police escort, and they take you. And so, like, there's people walking all over in the streets, and, people know that that's the team bus. They see, like, hey, that's the Iowa bus. So we're coming, down the street and around the corner and go back toward the arena. And, all of a sudden we're going past, like, the Florida team hotel, and there's thousands of people outside, and there's people walking the streets, and there's bars, and, we're getting the gator chomp, and you just feel it on the back of your neck. Like, I felt it, like, man, we are walking into something like now. This is going to be, this is going to be a hostile environment tonight, and so, like, I think, we all knew we were walking into a fist fight, and that was kind of our mentality. And then, as the game went, there was a situation that happened in the game that got a little chippy, and so, it kind of made us ball up even more and, like, ready to fight, and I thought we fought and until the end of the game.
Yeah, I remember Coop telling us that story about that was his favorite part of that bus ride over, seeing that gator chomp. Yeah. So now we see why, when everyone's looking on the national television, why the players might have been delivering the gator chomp back to fans. It comes full circle sometimes. But yeah, so you guys win that game. Is this like a surreal moment for you? Like, you're at your dream school in your first year. You just took Iowa back to the Sweet 16 after getting that monkey off our back for a couple of decades. Like, how's this playing in your mind?
Yeah, man, it just happened so fast. Like, when we won, and then obviously we celebrated on the floor, we walk off in the tunnel and we go back, into the locker room, and a couple people are getting grabbed to do some media and stuff before we even get to go in there and celebrate. And honestly, I was kind of I went in the players' locker room thinking that Coach was probably going to be in there, and took a little longer than he normally takes. And I was kind of just, like, standing in the back, and I got emotional. I was just like, what did I do to be able to deserve this, opportunity? And it was really, really cool, really special, to get to celebrate that. And so, yeah, we win the game. We went back to the hotel, and obviously there was, a whole ton of people there to greet us and celebrate. And we got to celebrate and enjoy that night, and then didn't fly back till the next day. And then literally I think we landed on Monday afternoon about 3:00. Our flight was kind of delayed getting out of there, and we landed about 3:00, and Kyle Denning, our director of operations, hops on the mic and says, "Hey, we're leaving tomorrow at 3:00.
What's the purpose of even flying back to Iowa City at that point?
Yeah, you had 24 hours. You went home, you unpacked everything from your suitcase, threw it in the wash, and then packed it right back up, and you're out the door the next day. So it was a whirlwind. And then, we knew we were playing Nebraska, who we played twice already. So obviously we had scouted them. Jesse Shaw on our staff had the scout on them, and he'd watched every game they played the whole season. So we felt like we knew Nebraska the whole, better than maybe they knew themselves. So we were really dialed in for that game and ready to go.
Yeah, so obviously you guys take down Nebraska, your rival, third time playing them that year, and then obviously a former Iowa player, Price Sanford. So a lot of tension was on that line, and there always is between Iowa and Nebraska, right? Football, basketball. So leads you guys to the Illinois, which ultimately you guys fell short, but nonetheless, it was one of the favorite couple week stretches of my life, and I'm sure it was for most Iowa fans. And this kind of falls before we get into next season. I want to talk about a little bit of elephant in the room. Coach, for the first time last year, I've had season tickets for football ever since these eyes could see. But last year was the first time having men's basketball tickets. And I've been going to Carver all my years. But it's a growing progress. We have the students behind the hoop, but Carver's not where it needs to be right now. What's some of the thought process or innovative mind thinking that's going behind the scenes on your guys' end to improve this atmosphere moving forward?
Yeah, I think, our administration and whatnot with, some of the stuff that's going to be done with renovations to Carver, I think, us in having the success that we had to finish the year, I think us continuing to just, be around and be visible, in the community here on campus, going out into, different speaking engagements, going out and walking around tailgating when football season's happening, all those things that you saw, Coach McCollum and some of our staff out doing.
Hopping on a podcast with two random kids from Iowa on 5 o'clock on a Monday.
That's just trying to continue to generate that excitement about the program, and hopefully people look at our program and they see, the program and what the culture that Coach McCollum has installed, that hey, we're Iowa. This is who we are. We're like everybody else here. And, I think, we're trying to do a lot of those types of things to kind of continue to generate and grow the excitement to it. So,
yeah, Coach, if your guys' goal was to make this team more personal and connected to the fans, your message was clearly delivered. That's all I felt last year, and I've never been more connected to Iowa basketball. So kudos to you guys. And what solves a lot of issues is winning, and that's what you guys were doing last year. And when you start doing that, the arena fills up and it gets better. So I'm excited to see what's to come to Carver with this new renovation coming up. So
you know what, I want to cut you off there real quick before we move on to next year. So I remember after we won, maybe it was the Florida game, and I think you guys posted, you guys had the video reactions from all these fans and posted all those. And it was like, man, that I'm the fan, I was there for my whole life, and now I get to do this. I thought that was one of the coolest things I've seen. So that was pretty cool.
My brother and I were in the unfinished basement, my basement. We're superstitious watching it. And Fulgaris hit that three, and I have a separate clip of that. And we didn't even move because we knew there was still time left on the clock. We just froze is this happening? And then we won, and we just went ballistic. We were just talking to our neighbors that just moved in. You guys were out running around with the Hawkeye flag in the backyard at whatever time of night it was. And I go back. Awesome. I go back and watch that clip once a week. There's no doubt about it. But
when you're talking about that post game and just all the emotions around it, I'm getting secondhand chills, and I know Nate is too.
Oh, yeah.
But obviously, you got to be coach, and you've already talked about some of the recruiting grind this summer. How is those big moments transferred into the portal and some of the recruiting process? And what is the buzz around Iowa basketball right now? Can you feel a shift?
Yeah, I think honestly the first thing I did when I got back after we celebrated with our team and I got back in the locker room, the coaches portion of the locker room, is I hopped on FaceTime with a handful of, guys that I was recruiting, and, hey, just celebrating with them, let them feel that excitement as well. And so I think definitely it's generated a lot of excitement. You can feel it. You can feel it, just honestly wherever you go around town or around the state, even traveling for the week, the weekend of recruiting, you walk through the airport and, you get a lot of people, hey, watched you guys run. It was awesome, that sort of thing. So, yeah, hopefully we can continue to use that positive momentum.
Coach, you're underselling. You're underselling that. This brand
Yeah.
is sexier than it's been in the last 3 decades, maybe. I'm all in. I cannot wait for basketball season to come out. But
And what, you're 6 weeks into the summer schedule, you said? I mean, and there's a lot of height that we're seeing already on the floor, and it's just sneak peeks. We don't get an inside look. We're just, like Nate said, a couple guys from Iowa, but we're pretty excited about what we're seeing so far from this summer.
Yeah, so that's perfect. That's what I want to talk about this upcoming year is I think the main eye attraction to us, at least to myself right now, is the height, right, compared to last year. And first off, did you see this picture, or at least at practice, of Andrew McKeever? He was holding the rim on both sides. Was that rim 10 foot?
Sometimes that rim's a little low. I've seen it be brought down and back up for camp, so it might have been lower than 10 foot. I don't know if that was 10 foot, but he is the biggest human being I've ever been around.
It's just a mountain, man. It looks like he's off of Game of Thrones type of shit. But
when he came on his visit, he flew in late one night, and then the whole staff met him for breakfast the next morning. And I remember my chair at the table with him was directly across, and so we're all talking, and I'm I can't stop staring at this dude's hands. He's got the biggest hands I've ever seen. You can't even see the fork. He's eating his food, and you can't see the fork because his hands are so big. But I think Logan, our strength coach, measured him at 7'3" and a quarter, 290, 295-ish. And, at St. Mary's last year in their preseason conditioning, he ran a 5:28 mile. So, that's moving for a big dude. And so, he's an awesome kid. He's been great to have, here thus far, and we're really excited about him.
Yeah, what I like about him is he's got good girth size to him too, right? Not just thin. He's damn near a mountain. But so this year's team, obviously, you have 7'3" Andrew McKeever, and then your small forwards are lined up with 6'7" dudes. You got Trey Thompson, Sage, Cooper Koch, Jaden Kuhn coming in, and just the size plays such a big factor because, Coach, I'm going to say something. You tell me if I'm wrong here. But I don't think people understand, or maybe they do for last year's sake, that having the undersize is so physically and mentally exhausting through at least the regular season format of the Big Ten, right? Because it's not do or die situation. It's night in and night out. And when you're playing teams like Penn State, sure, they might be a lower tier, but they have those caliber size players where you have to compete 40 minutes a game against these guys just to get an offensive rebound or a defensive rebound. And over the course of the regular season, that's just got to absolutely wear on you mentally. And then obviously get to the NCAA tournament, it's do or die time. So it's easier to get more prepared for that. Is that something that's going to play a massive advantage when just psychologically thinking about it this year?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's probably one thing going into the Big Ten. I talked to some coaches I'd see on the road last year, and just hey, hey, you were in the Big Ten this year for the first time. What was the thing that stood out to you? And it felt it was pretty consistently echoed that the physicality of the Big Ten is size and physicality. And so, to be able to add a guy, specifically like Andrew, I wouldn't really consider Andrew a shot blocker, but he is just so big. He just eats up space, and he just eats up rebounds, and he's a presence around the rim that it almost when we're in practice and the other team's trying to get the ball to the rim, sometimes I think it's in the back of their head, hey, there's a 7'3" dude down there, and they almost, it just changes their mentality of how they think they're going to score around the rim, and then maybe they're taking more outside shots because of it. So I think he affects those things. But to your point of the grind of the Big Ten schedule, I think we had a stretch last year where maybe on Sunday we played Illinois, who was by Ken Palm the tallest team in the country by average size, and then hey, you lost a tough one at home, and now all of a sudden on Wednesday you're at Purdue, and obviously they have a couple 7-footers.
They breed them in a factory out there, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Saturday you go to Indiana, and it just keeps coming at you, and the physicality and the size, and we were undersized, and I think maybe our fans were frustrated at times with that, but I think we did the best that we could with what we had last year, and I think we learned from that going forward, and we recruited as such.
Bryce, do you have any questions about the upcoming season, or do you want to get Coach into some rapid fires here?
I don't. I first of all give Banks and Manuel a lot of credit on that front. But I do, before we get into the rapid fire, was there a little bit of extra motivation to beat DeVries and his son, knowing that you guys were kind of like in that same coaching hire situation? I know that he took the job, and Nate and I agreed that we got our guy with Coach McCollum, but was there any added motivation there?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just, we were desperate to win a Big Ten, game and a road game, and that was our first Big Ten road win, if I remember correctly. So, just going in there and trying to get a win. To me, it wasn't as much, about DeVries. It was just, this is Indiana. This is what I remember growing up watching, Bob Knight in Indiana, and knowing, how that program has always been, and what it's meant for that state and their fan base. And so, it was just about going and getting a Big Ten win, honestly.
You go, Nate.
That's why I'm not a head coach, because I would have been in the locker room telling my players, like, listen,
yes, as a petty fan.
This son of a bitch is from Iowa. I love him, but I want to beat him more than everyone. So credit to you.
Yeah, that's why we're casuals, Nate. As a casual fan, I was looking back and being like, yes, we got our guy. This is going to be a lot of pain for DeVries coming soon. Coach, before Nate has a few for you, what's it like working for McCollum? How's that been the last couple of years, and what's the best and some of the more interesting things of working with a guy like that?
So let me tell you this. I was sitting in Vegas the other day with Coach, and next to us it's Danny Hurley and one of his assistant coaches. And we're talking, whatever. Coach gets up. He goes to another court to watch the game. So I'm sitting there, and Danny goes, what's it like to work for Coach? And I said, it's great. He's great. He treats us well. Like he's got a great personality. He's a family guy. Like he's got good balance. We don't just sit in the office and waste time. Like we're in here, we get our jobs done, and we have time to spend with our families, etc. But he's super competitive, and we're all super competitive, and when it's time to work, we work, and then we have a lot of fun along the way. And so that's kind of what it's like to work for Coach. He's like intelligent beyond belief from a lot of different things, but just from a basketball standpoint in general, I think he views the game and the program and things in a different way than maybe a lot of other people. So I think it's probably challenged me to change how I look at things, instead of a way that it feels like a lot of college basketball would look at things. He kind of has a different way of looking at things, it feels like. So that's kind of, I think, what it's like. I mean, we have a lot of fun in the office every day. He says, he gets to come in and hang out with his friends. And so, we work hard, but we also, have a lot of fun, while doing it. So to end that story about Danny Hurley, he turned to his assistant and he said, well, what would you say about working for me?
Now, you were describing
what do you tell people?
That group. That is an interesting group of coaches right there. That's fun.
Yeah. He's Coach says he thinks he might be the only guy that's crazier than him. So.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah, those two combined had most of the March Madness clips last year.
Yeah, no shit.
No doubt.
Sometimes you need that extra edge. But all right, Coach, let's wrap up this podcast with some rapid fires here. Give me your top two favorite restaurants in Iowa City.
Ooh, I really like Basta.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Basta, like an Italian restaurant, I like Basta a lot. And then, man, I love a good steak. So, like, if my wife and I go on a date, we usually go to Joseph's steak place here. It's probably, in my opinion, like one of the best.
Okay, and then one for Bryce here, since he's in Des Moines. You spent some good amount of time in Des Moines. One favorite restaurant if you had to go to in Des Moines, or at least the area.
Well, I'll give you a couple.
Okay.
I love going to Palmer's Deli for lunch.
Underrated lunch
That's
spot.
like my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Palmer's Deli for lunch. When I was at Drake the first time, like we used to go all the time. I would go last year. I got a buddy that lives in Des Moines that meet up with him and go to lunch sometimes. Um, One that probably a lot of people don't know is Lucky Horse. Do you know Lucky Horse right by Drake
Nate
campus?
became a
Yes.
big fan of Lucky
Yes.
Horse as he
So
became
when
a big Drake fan during your guys' tenure.
Yeah.
when I was following you guys, that was my pregame spot always. I think they had one of the best flatbread pizzas I've ever had in the state. I loved it.
They underrated. They got really good
They do have
food.
good food.
They have. You ever tried the Brussels sprouts there?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
You got to try the Brussels
I'm a
sprouts.
picky eater, but
They're
I'll take your
unbelievable.
word.
Since you guys left, Nate doesn't come to Des Moines anymore. So
Nope.
I guess we'll have to take your Iowa City recommendations.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Your life's on the line here, Coach. It's a 150-yard par three. They asked Coach McCollum. He's got one shot at it. It's got to stick the green. It's got to land. Are you living or not? If he's got to stick it for you to live,
Ooh,
do you trust him?
I'm probably living. Yeah,
so?
I think he's a good enough golfer too, and I trust him.
Coop said no way. Cooper said he was a dead man.
Who thought he was done?
Well,
He said his son.
I would rather have.
He said his son would save him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. I'd rather have Cooper or Peyton McCollum hitting that shot. They're probably the two best golfers on the team.
So you got a little faith, and Coach getting it done. Then okay, that's good to hear. All right, your all-time favorite Iowa basketball player.
Man, I don't know if I can narrow it down to one. I mean, like Chris Street. I mean, Jess Settles, Dean Oliver, BJ, Andre Woolridge. I mean, like I could go on and on. There's just like too many. Like that's my childhood, and I don't know if I could really narrow it down.
That's fair. Coach, this next one's about your brother. Did he ever tell you how he intercepted that ball against Indiana?
No, not really.
I
think it just was there, and he just has he always had a knack of like he just made plays always, and it it was something that ever since he was a little kid, I remember like at my games or my sister's games, we were both a little bit older than him. At halftime he'd be out there shooting or he'd be doing different things, and like he was just the type like he could pick up a golf club and he could just hit a golf ball, like just like anything he picked up he was able to just kind of do. And so I always felt like he was super lucky that way. He could just do whatever, and
Kind of like a Cooper DeJean
Not sure.
skill set.
yeah, kind of like a Cooper DeJean. Yeah.
Well, that's leads me to my next rapid fire question here. There was a famous clip last year of Coach McCollum playing against Cooper DeJean in your guys' pickup. Are you still hooping with the boys?
No, sir.
Okay, smart.
I'm old. I have three boys at home that I have to chase around, and so I don't need an Achilles or a knee injury. I stick to the treadmill, and then here this spring and summer I've actually tried to get back in the weight room a little bit now that I didn't have to move for the third time in 3 years. So,
But you can confirm that Coach is still playing.
yeah, he still plays. I feel like he's slowing down a little bit. He doesn't play
God,
like
he looked
every
quick
day. We
last
got a
year.
couple guys.
He had that
good.
quick behind the
Yeah,
behind the back, of Coop, but Coop obviously has a 40
good athlete,
blocked it off the glass. But
Yeah, no, he still plays. Like there'll be some days, certain times of the year when the staff will get together and play, and he'll play. But I don't feel like he's playing as much. He's been running a lot lately.
okay.
He actually was running in Vegas, and we were in Vegas for recruiting 2 weeks ago, and texting one morning. He was running. He got done with like a 7-mile run, and he's like walking, and he stepped in like a pothole and sprained his ankle. So if you see him or whatnot in the next few weeks, ask him about his ankle. He's a little banged up right now.
I can't make fun of him because I have glass.
You got glass ankles.
At one point, I think I led the state in sprains. All right, Coach. Last question here. What's your favorite thing or things to do on road games that does not involve basketball?
Man, we don't get a lot of time on road games. The way it is now, I mean, we literally we'll fly out of Cedar Rapids about 4 or 5 o'clock. We get in, we land, we go straight to the hotel, drop your stuff off. We're usually on the bus going to shoot around, just to have the guys work the trip, work the travel out of their legs a little bit. I guess one thing that happens is usually the guys are trying to climb up into the catwalk and shoot trick shots off the catwalk, so that's kind of funny. But we usually get done with that, and we get done with that, we'll go have, a nice dinner somewhere, and then usually come back to the hotel and do some film, and then you go to bed, and then your game day. So I guess my routine, I like to get up before, early in the morning and get my workout in, my own personal workout in. So that's probably the one thing I feel like at my age I enjoy. I enjoy a nice cup of coffee in the morning, and then I enjoy getting my workout in. So that's what you get to look forward to when you get old like me.
Fair enough. Well, Coach, we appreciate for taking the time and hopping on the podcast with us. I'm about to renew my season tickets for this year's upcoming season, so you'll be seeing me walking around in Carver, giving everything I have for the Hawks. I can promise you that.
Love it. Bring some friends with you.
Always do. All right, Coach. Well, it looks like you survived the tornado warning, so there's another pro to you.
Yeah, it's not raining or anything out, so we're good over here.
Good to go. So we'll end this. Go ahead. Like I said, just stick around here for a second, and then we'll send you off.
Perfect.